Hey, good morning, guys. It's April 13th, 2010. I got an article here I'd like to read to you, and it has to do with the income tax, since we're getting really close to that ominous date of April 15th. This article is called The Income Tax and the American Servitude. With April 15th almost upon us, this would be a good time to remind ourselves of how the income tax contributed to the destruction of American liberty. And I know a lot of you thinking, oh great, here goes Ron again with his doom and gloom attitude about our government and how things are going. But just hold on. We should first keep in mind that with the exception of the Civil War, the American people lived without an income tax from the beginning of the United States until 1913, when the 16th Amendment was adopted. And it's interesting how that happened, but we won't go into that. This was not an accident. Americans living during the period of time understood that freedom and an income tax were contradictory notions. If people wanted to live in a free society, it would have to be a society in which the government was prohibited from levying taxes on income. Conversely, if people wanted to live in a society in which government is taxing income, then the price they pay is the loss of freedom. An income tax-free society where everyone is free to keep the fruits of his earnings. He keeps everything he earns. He is free to accumulate unlimited amounts of wealth. He is free to do whatever he wants with his own money. And there is nothing the government can do about it because the government is prohibited from taking any portion of a person's income from him. There is no IRS. There is no income tax returns. There is no deductions to keep track of. And there are no need to keep records. There is no withholding tax. Again, everyone simply keeps everything he earns and decides for himself how to spend it, invest it, donate it, or otherwise dispose of it. This is what Americans once believed was an absolute prerequisite to a free society. That's why Americans lived without an income tax for more than 100 years. Okay, so this is not something that's foreign to this country. Half of its existence was lived under the guise of no tax. Okay, it continues here. Everything changed in 1913 when socialist ideas were being imported from Europe into the United States. That was the watershed year. The year that brought into existence what would become the twin jugular veins for the welfare state and the warfare state, the income tax and the Federal Reserve System. From that date forward, and continuing through today, Americans would be coerced on pain of fine and imprisonment into sending some governmentally imposed percentage of their income to the IRS. The magnitude of that change cannot be overstated, for it actually inverted the historical relationship between the American people and the federal government. So it kind of turned the relationship on its head, from what it used to be to what it is now. Prior to the enactment of the income tax, the relationship between the citizen and the government was one of master and servant. The citizen, who was free to accumulate unlimited amounts of wealth, was sovereign because there was nothing the government could do to interfere with that process. The government was the servant. And that's what it was designed to do. The government was designed to be a servant to the people. It's, after all, it was for the people, by the people, right? By the people, for the people. The nature of that relationship fundamentally changed in 1913 with the enactment of the income tax. The citizen became his servant, and the federal government became his master. How was this so? The income tax effectively nationalized people's income, in that it placed everyone's income at the disposal of the government. While before, government lacked the power to take any portion of people's income, now it wielded the power to take any or all of their income. It all depended on the specific percentage that the government required people to send to the IRS. Sometimes the government is nice and sets a lower percentage. Sometimes it's not so nice and sets a higher percentage. Keep people under this fear thing. But what matters with respect to freedom is not the particular percentage that is set, but rather the fact that the government has the power to set the percentage. As of April 15th rolls around once again, friends, let us remind ourselves what Jefferson stated in the Declaration of Independence, that everyone has been endowed with certain unalienable rights, including the right to life, liberty, and property. For more than 100 years, Americans understood that such natural, God-given rights encompass the right to accumulate unlimited amounts of wealth and the right to decide what to do with that wealth. I'd like to end with a quote, and this quote is by JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and this quote he gave at Columbia University 10 days before he was assassinated. The high office of president has been used to foment a plot to destroy America's freedom. And before I leave office, I must inform the citizen of his plight. I believe he had insight into certain things that were going on in the government that would eventually, and it was at his time, to rip the freedoms away from American citizens. And friends, do you really feel free in the country that we're living in right now? I think we ought to think about that. I don't believe we are as free as we used to be when this country was first founded. Because it seems to me that you can't do hardly anything without filling out a form or in some way being regulated. And I think that breeds an attitude in its people that will eventually probably backfire on the government. Anyway, guys, have a great day. Talk to you later.